But I want to welcome you here today, David Permut, and get chatting. How you doing?
Doing great. How can I not be doing great after that interview? Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I'm still doing it, which is my passion and always has been.
Well, you're thank God, and you're doing it in an amazing way. Your film that opens today was the sensation of this year's Sundance Festival. It looks to be another very buzzy A24 release, and I want to get to all that, but I want to start at the beginning with you because you have there's so many things I want to be sure to touch on before we don't get lost in this weekend news. So you grew up in L.A. and you started before you even went into the business. Started selling star. Your first job, your first industry job was selling maps of the stars home.
Yes, I started on the street corner in Holmby Hills. That was where I started. I had a director's chair and a sign, and I was I didn't sell them. I was the publisher at the time of Beverly Hills Map Company.
Oh, really? You were the.
$25 license from the city, and the experiences on my corner were pretty remarkable. You got to understand, this is before TMZ.
Yeah.
World back then. You know, Elvis Presley lived around the corner, and Katharine Hepburn. Everybody would stop at the sign. How's business? Randolph Scott's wife gave me an umbrella. I was getting too much sun. You know, it was a very small community. This is in the early 70s when we moved out from New York, where I'm from originally. But when my family moved to California, my dad and my brother, my sister, and my mom and dad moved out here. So I grew up mostly out here, but I consider myself still a New Yorker at heart, and I love the city, of course. But anyway, the movie map business is really a business. It helped me do a lot of things because I was a very internal kid, and it got me to meet people because I was determined. I live it, sleep it, drink it. People who know me know that. I go to Sundance, and I go to Toronto, and I go to all the festivals. I have a habit of seeing 5 movies every day for 10 days. So I'm there after everybody from Hollywood goes home, and I'm just sitting with cinephiles from all over the world. And that's where a lot of the movies and projects that I'm doing, including the ones you've mentioned recently, evolved from those festivals. Sean Hayter, obviously, with Coda, you know, was the queen of the festival.
Yeah.
What happened on the journey on that incredible film. And she's directing, as you said, Being Human, which is out later in the year through Apple. And the invite, you know, I met Rashida Jones and Will McCormick when they had their first film at Sundance many years ago, who wrote the screenplay. So a lot of the tentacles of over the years with many of the films I've done, you know, speak to film festivals and my insatiable appetite of loving and my passion for movie making. But the movie maps was a great experience for me. And there's lots of stories. There was actually a book written. There was a 7-page article that the High Reporter had written about my experiences taking on the mob when they tried to get rid of me on the corner. And
the mob came after your star maps business.
Yeah, there was somebody named Belden Cattleman. The first hotel in Vegas was, as you know, Bugsy Siegel and Meyer Lansky.
Sure.
The second hotel was Belden Cattleman and Meyer Lansky, called the El Rancho. And he lived 2 blocks down at 200 Baroda, which was Gary Cooper's old house. So I know every house in Beverly Hills today. And the histories behind them. But anyway, I won't digress too much with my movie map story, but Tatiana Siegel at the Hollywood Reporter called me. She goes, David, we want to do an article on the Oscar issue. And this is after Hacksaw. This is like a couple of years after Hacksaw. I said, wait a minute, you're late for the Oscar issue. Hacksaw Ridge was 2 years prior to this. She goes, no, early career. And I said, you're talking about Richard Pryor? You're talking about my early career with what? And she goes, well, when you were 16. I go, what do you know when I was 16? Well, we know you were the publisher of Beverly Hills Map Company. I started laughing. We know you took on the mob. And I said, all right, what else do you know? And she goes, we know you had a landmark case in the Supreme Court as the president of Beverly Hills Map Company when you were 16. And I said, where do you get your sources? And she said, we reveal our sources. Anyway, I'm doing this article. If your viewers want to see it, they can access it. But anyway, the movie maps led to other things in my career early on. So it's a long story, so I don't want to take up too much time. But, you know, my early career started, and I know we're going to talk about AI, and we're going to talk about a lot of the issues that we're contending with in our business right now, especially in the independent film business, most definitely, and the industry as a whole. But my early career started, quite honestly, with lightning in a bottle. I videotaped the play in one night in Seattle. There was one man on stage. My job was to pay people to go have steak dinners because I had cameras set up in their seats. So it was a live, like the whole TV show backstage. Steve Binder was pushing buttons, camera one, camera two. It was videotaped. It was taped in one night. It cost $52,000, including the party. We had 7 cameras. Watch this actor be brilliant. Film was videotaped, keep in mind. So we had a film in the can in one take, one night, and it was transferred to film, and it looked like shit. It looked terrible. Taped to film. There was no digital. It was 1976.
Right.
And no studio. I couldn't get past the gate guards to even look at this videotape transfer to film. Literally 3 weeks later, I had a film in the can, but nobody would see it. So we said, screw it. We'll release it ourselves. And we called Salah Hassanin and Sumner Redstone and Hank Plitt and all the theater owners back then. A little different climate in the back then, in the 70s. And we released the film ourselves. And the guy said, it looks like crap, Permut, but you know what? The actor's very good. We'll put it in a few screens, see what happens. It's in 10 screens. I think 11 screens. And then I got a call from the Academy. Congratulations, you've been nominated for an Oscar. James Whitmore was traveling the country in a play called Give 'Em Hell Harry, about Harry Truman. A successful play, never went to Broadway, but it's traveling the country. We got lightning in a bottle. We captured it with the spontaneity and immediacy of one night and released it theatrically. So it's interesting. I know you probably want to talk about.
No, this is great.
And you want to talk about Iron Lung, and you want to talk about the back rooms. And the first film I ever made in one night, we distributed ourselves, and the picture wound up doing 11.5 million because I wound up on the red carpet with James Whitmore opposite Jack Nicholson and Al Pacino that year in 1976. So
11 million in 1976 for a movie is a lot of money. That's
well, as my partner Bill Sargent, and that's a whole story in itself. He was my mentor, and he did it with me essentially, and how I met him is a longer story. But anyway, Bill Sargent was a real innovator. He was one of those guys who's really a promoter in the truest sense of that word. He had videotaped Hamlet on Broadway during the Burton Taylor eras. And he made a fortune, Richard Burton and Hamlet, by releasing it theatrically. I'm talking in the 60s. Yep. The Astrovision, that was the company. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But Give 'Em Hell Harry is what paved the way for me to do a comedy concert, which had never been done.
Yeah.
And Richard Pryor, live in concert, happened for one reason, because of the success of James Whitmore doing a one-man show videotaped in one night, because that's exactly what we did with Richard Pryor live in concert. Bill Sargent and I, in 1979, it took a couple of years to convince Richard to even do this show. He needed money at the time.
No, I don't think I'd ever, because I remember when that came out, and then
the first concert, and we videotaped in one night in Long Beach Terrace Theater with a live audience. And I'm also, people are there to see a live production. I got cameras in certain seats, etc. And in one night, videotaped Richard Pryor live in concert, transferred to film. And the studio said, you got lucky with that Give 'Em Hell Harry. It's never going to happen. Lightning doesn't strike again. Well, guess what? They were wrong. And we called up Sumner Redstone and Salah Hassanin and Hank Plitt and all the theater owners who had success with us with Give 'Em Hell Harry. And they booked Richard Pryor live in concert, 1979, the first comedy concert. And lightning in a bottle. Picture did 32.5 million, Richard, in 1979.
Which is over 100 million today or something.
The ratio and what it cost to videotape a movie in one night, $400,000 for one night, and the only other cost was the 7 video cameras essentially, and our director Margolis. So we got lightning in a bottle. But go ahead. Sorry.
But that also, if I may say that also began. A tradition of filming comedy acts, which is what, if you look on Netflix today, all those come directly. I don't know that there's a case of a one person performance being filmed and captured like that before that.
No, I think it was really innovative, and it's a testament to Bill Sargent, who was a mentor of mine, but my ultimate mentor after Bill was really Ray Stark, because Ray had asked at the time, could I send the print of Richard Pryor to his house on Mapleton? I obviously know the address. Yeah. And I never met Ray Stark. And we had dinner one night, and he said, look, you should be at a studio. And at that year after Richard Pryor, that's when I made my first overall studio. Because my whole interest was always telling stories and making movies. And I did that when I was a kid growing up in New York. And I had tunnel vision. So when my dad's company flipped the coin, heads or tails, he and his partner were going to take the company to the West Coast. He wasn't related to the business at all. I'm moving to Hollywood. So while I'm a young kid, 13 years old, moving to LA, that's a great thing because that's where I want to be.
What was Ray Stark? Ray Stark, such a legendary personality in this business that we really don't have that kind of titans presiding over the business. I mean, he was a true godfather of the industry. Then what was he like?
Ray Stark was a complex man. I got to know him quite well, and he basically brought me into Columbia Pictures after Richard Pryor. As I said, the great thing about Ray Stark, he could sit in a story meeting and dissect a script as much as he could sit in a boardroom with Steve Ross selling his company to Seven Arts and Warner. You look at the history of his company and him as a business guy. So he straddled the fence between the business side of our industry and the creative side of our industry. And obviously, you look at his incredible work over the years of the films he made. So he was really an incredible role model for me. And I'm glad that he took an interest in my career early on, because I had deals with Columbia Pictures. Was the first time I made a studio deal after Richard Pryor. I was young in my career. I was in my 20s. And so my career has really started early on. So when you asked me to go through and talk about my career, I could be here for a long time, longer than you have. But I got very lucky early on, obviously. And my first biggest commercial success, I mean, I was always interested in true stories. I saw a 60-minute episode on a Sunday night, and I made a movie. It got made with Dino De Laurentiis eventually, based on a true story. But my first commercial success was when I was watching TV one night, surfing, and I'm watching an old TV show, and I'm laughing unintentionally because I grew up with the show. It was a police procedural, as you remember, Dum Da Dum Dum. It was Dragnet with Jack Webb, who created the show. And I always thought it was funny there, after every dramatic moment, dum da dum dum, you know, laughing. And then 2 channels away is Dan Aykroyd on Saturday Night Live. That particular night, I'm surfing in my bed, watching television. And that was what the seed was born. I'm going to take this old TV classic movie series, essentially, and I'm going to change it up and do it as a comedy. And that's where Dragnet was born. And the first call I made, Dan Aykroyd, we went into Frank Price's office at Universal, never saying a word, the shortest pitch in movie history. Dan and I looked at each other, and we looked at Frank Price at the time, and he said, "What do you got, boys?" And we said, "Dum, da-dum, dum." And a year later, we were in production on the film. It became one of the top 10 grossing movies of '87. And then Blind Date happened that same year. So, you know, look, I've had hits and misses as everyone has over the years, but I'm still loving it and still have the same passion I did.
Yeah, and you've got 2 years in a row. We've your camera has gone off there. I'm sorry, David. David seems to have had his internet interrupted. Hopefully, he'll be right back with us. Let's try and get him back there. Stand by, everybody. That was a very interesting conversation. Let's just. Your patience, we will be reunited. Here we go.
Technology.
There we go. Yes, that's right. That's the fun of a live performance here. That you don't know what you're going to get. Anyway, great to have you back. That brings me to there's a quote from you. From an article, you said, "For me, a producer is someone who's impervious to rejection," and I really think that is the key to so many careers in this business. How did you learn that skill, and how you seem like an indefatigable amount of energy and excitement? So how do you get to that point?
Now, Richard, that was a question I was asked at NYU one time. Somebody asked me if you could define a producer in one line, the essence of a producer. I think we all in life need to be impervious to rejection, yourself, everyone else, you know, honestly. I mean, the world today is on fire. The crises are around us everywhere. And when I look at my career, I talk personally for that, you know, to that comment, impervious to rejection, I could wallpaper my house with rejection letters on some of the most successful films in my career. Nobody wanted to distribute, let alone make, give Mel Harry or Richard Pryor, that's for sure, because nobody had done that before. That was a new venture, taking a live show and translating it to the screen, et cetera. Nobody wanted to make Face Off. Face Off was languishing in development at Warner Brothers. When I read that script, what a great concept!
Yeah,
nobody wanted to make it.
And the perfect actor, the idea of John Travolta and Nicolas Cage playing each other is
and a brilliant concept, but people were afraid the hell out of it. It could be unintentionally funny. Well, of course it could go wrong in the wrong hands, as anything can. But to me, it's like when I look at my career, Hacksaw Ridge was 17 years of my life. Once I met Desmond Doss, and I was privileged enough to meet him, I didn't even believe that story when I first heard it. How does a man win the Congressional Medal of Honor in the bloodiest battle in Okinawa without touching a gun? So to me, that's a common theme with so many of the projects that I've made. Prayers for Bobby, an Emmy Award-winning movie about teen suicide in the LGBT community, a provocative, bold film. Bayard Rustin, when I first came across Bayard Rustin's story, I didn't study him in school. I really didn't. I found out he was kind of invisible, and the reason was he was gay and he was an activist, obviously, and if it weren't for him, there probably would be no March on Washington, Martin Luther King's confidant. So that evolved into Coleman Domingo's great performance in our film with Netflix and an Oscar nomination. So I look back at these films, including my more recent film, The Invite. What a unique experience it was on that picture.
And that was a long journey to get that to the screen. Also, you didn't just show up.
First of all, it's interesting, Richard, when you talk about long journeys. Obviously, I mentioned the Rich 17 years. I go back and I look at some of the projects that I've worked on and the years it takes to get anything made. They're all miracles to begin with. To answer your question about The Invite started in Barcelona, Spain. There was a man named Cesc, who is a very talented playwright, director, writer, and also filmmaker. He had a previous film in Cannes that I had seen, which I liked a lot. So the history of this project starts with a woman upstairs from him in his high rise in Barcelona is making a lot of noise at 3 o'clock in the morning, disturbing him. And all I say is she's not moving furniture. So there's a lot of passion coming through the ceiling with he and his wife living downstairs. And that's where the seed of the idea started for the project, which is now known as The Invite. But what happened was, he translated it to the stage, and it was a stage play called The People Upstairs in Spain. And then he translated the play to film, and the film wound up at TIFF. I'm at TIFF watching my 50 movies or so, and it was during the pandemic, so I'm actually not at TIFF because nobody was at TIFF. We were all watching during COVID. I'm watching hundreds of movies, as many as I could, back to back, at home. And I see this movie called The People Upstairs, and that's where it was born. And I acquired the rights faster than shit to a goose. We were on the phone to Spain. Alex Astracan, who works with me, we got on the phone and we spoke to the distributor and to Cesc and acquired the rights. And then we had a lot of directors interested in developing it with us because there was no script. It needed to be an English language translation. Anyway,
you had a lot of people come and go through the project, I believe.
Well, there were a lot of people interested in the project. Develop it with us, and ultimately the great news is we found the perfect writers, who wound up being Rashida Jones and Will McCormick, who I met in Sundance when they had their first film there called Celeste and Jesse Forever, and a male-female perspective on the story was great. So that's where the project evolved from. The strikes got in the way. We had a cast, we were ready to go, et cetera, et cetera. We got in the incentive. It was a go picture that became a green light picture turned into a red light for all of us. Obviously, the strikes happened. And then after the fires, we wound up reconstituting the film. And of course, Olivia Wilde, who I had met with on another project when we first met, when I met with her, she articulated the movie better than any of the filmmakers I had previously met with. And she, of course, directed and also starred. One job's hard enough, but she starred and directed this movie with Seth Rogen, Penelope Cruz, and Edward Norton, which I couldn't have rounded up. Things are, the Yiddish word beshert, which is one of the company's names, Beshert Productions, one of my companies. It's a Yiddish word meaning things are meant to be. There's no accent talking to you now. Things meant to be when they're meant to be. It wasn't meant to happen 6 years ago. Hacksaw Ridge was not meant to happen 17 years prior to production. But the one thing, I'm tenacious like a pit bull in heat, somebody said. I took it as a compliment. I don't know whether they meant it as a compliment or not, but I took it that way. I don't give up because I think passion is an overused word, but when you're passionate about something, you don't give up.
Do you get this feeling when it transitions, like you got this project, you've been knocking your head against the wall, years have gone by, people have looked at it, people have come and gone, and then suddenly it just starts to get easy, and things start to feel right and falling into. Do you know that moment when it comes, like, okay, this is happening and this is good?
I haven't found that moment yet in my
That
is a word that I would associate. My sister, who's a civilian, she's kind of always looks at me living vicariously through my adventures. You know, I'm impervious to rejection. When I hear no, I get excited because to me, the challenge we all have in this business, especially today, what's more important, Richard, than what you're doing, what I'm doing in my world, you know, journalists telling stories that matter, that make a difference. So I revere Harry Warner. Jack Warner was a shit, and nobody particularly liked Jack Warner. I get a lawsuit from him, but his heirs. I met him, which is a miracle, when I was selling maps, which is.
Tell me about that meeting.
Well, I tried to sell him a car. It's a long story. My first car was a mini moke, which is a kind of combination of a dune buggy. Those of you don't know it, but I have $900. I bought it from Elkie Summer, who lived on Beverly Glen and would pass my corner, and so that was how I got my first license, my learner's permit. That was my car, and I'm driving past Angelo, 1901 Angelo, and I see all the Warner Brothers trucks in front. As a kid growing up, I saw all those trucks. They're all from the studio. They're doing landscaping at his home, which is now owned by Jeff Bezos. Anyway, and was formerly owned by David Geffen. I don't want to get into the too much.
Yeah, I love Hollywood real estate history. Well, that's my thing.
I will do a sidebar. Yeah. So here's what happened. So I drove past there in my mini moke, and I saw this guy, and he looked like he wasn't a member of the groundskeepers from Warner Brothers. So I said, by the way, does Mr. Warner need a golf cart? Because I was looking to sell the car at the point in my career. And so he said, it's a cute car. That's what he said. He said, a cute car. I said, is Mr. Warner looking for a golf cart for his 9-hole golf course at his home, which he had? And he said, as a matter of fact, we are. And I started talking to him, and he said, well, I'd love to talk to you about it. He says, how much do you want? So now I'm going to negotiate. Now, I was pretty good on the corner because movie maps started at $3. They went to $2, $1, whatever I could get. So it was like Tijuana and Beverly Hills on that corner. But so I started talking about it. And he said, no, I don't think so. I'm just, he said, no, it's a cute car, kid. That's all. So I went home, typed a letter. Dear Mr. Warner, I met your groundskeeper today. I live nearby. I have a car. I enclosed a picture. And if you'd like to see the car, I'd be happy to show it to you. And my mother said to me, like, weeks later, she goes, who the hell do you have at the house? Some guy's here from Mr. Warner's estate. So I met this guy in the driveway, and he said, you want to come over and see if it goes on the greens? Because I don't know if that car is made for green driving. I said, yeah, I figure I'm going to meet Jack Warner, right? I'm going to negotiate with Jack Warner to sell my car for $900 or whatever, or hopefully a profit. Or maybe I get a studio job. Never yet. Anyway, long story. But I didn't meet him at that time. I met him at another time when I crashed a party, which is a long, involved story at the Hilton Hotel. And I met him there, but that's the long story altogether. But anyway, so getting back to your question of whatever it was I forgot.
Well, tell me, just getting back to the invite now, I want to taking that film finishing that film with such an incredible cast. Turns out, well, you take it to Sundance. You have a premiere Saturday night at the Eccles Theater, which is Sundance prime time. It's an immediate sensation. Instantly, it's the hit of Sundance, and a bidding war ensues. Now, when you're talking to the various bidders and taking the bids. And looking at what besides the final price tag, what are you looking at? What helps you decide? What makes you?
I think beyond the numbers, beyond the price tag, as you said, the most important thing is cutting the umbilical cord with our baby, collectively our baby, with everybody involved in that decision. With Annapurna and obviously A24 is who we landed with. It was retro because bidding wars haven't happened like they did for us in Sundance this past year.
Yeah.
So in answer to your question, who's going to give it the care and nurture it the way it needs to be nurtured? How's it going to go out? Is it going to go out theatrically? I mean, there were streamers at our doorstep as well. We had offers from practically every major studio came after it, as you know. So there were meetings that took place, and there were just many discussions about who was the best fit. A24 is obviously in the top of the game in terms of marketing, and they're on an incredible roll and have been, and they're very talented at doing that and getting the word out on this picture. And all I can say is it was an amazing experience going through that. But my greatest experience for me personally in seeing the movie was last night, because I bought a ticket and I sit, L12 is the seat I sit in,
12.
at the MC in Century City. I walked into the theater at 7:45 for the 8 o'clock show last night. It was about 3 people in there. And people generally show up late, as we all know, to theaters with the trailers running for 20 minutes. And it was 257 people, and every seat was filled. And I sat there and really enjoyed the film for the first time without thinking about who the film's going to be sold to and all the issues at Sundance, in fact. But I think we landed at the perfect home for it. And the audiences are who we make films for. They're ultimately going to tell us what they feel about the film. So the standing ovation in Sundance with cinephiles from all over the world at all the screenings we had there, and the continued screenings that we've had, and especially last night with paying customers, it was a great experience. So I'm really excited. And the great thing about the movie is it was really a unique experience, because keep in mind, we shot this movie obviously after the strikes, after the fires. It was one of the first movies to shoot in LA. We got it the incentive. It was financed independently. Anna Perna, Megan Ellison produced it with me, with Brent Browning. We made this picture. We shot on 35, which Olivia wanted to shoot on. We shot in LA. We shot in continuity, which is rare.
Yeah.
And look at the cast. It's just combustible. And the other thing about the
So how did you feel it was when you saw it on the theater? Was this everything when you first had the idea for it? Was this everything you wanted it to be?
You know what? It's beyond everything, and my hopes and expectations were realized last night. So you have me the morning after I saw it last night. So I'm like I'm dancing on the clouds. Believe me.
Well, I think we're soulmates, because almost, because I was looking down when you said it, because I bought my ticket to see it tonight at the AMC, and when you said that, I looked for where so I will be tonight at L1. We were on the same row.
L12 is the seat. It's back in the middle. And by the way, if you're there, ask for Otto. Say hello to Otto.
Okay.
He's the projectionist there. He's a friend of mine because he knows I'm always over there. And he sees more movies than most of the people running studios in Hollywood, quite honestly. He's a cinephile of the first order. And he's the one who told me the advanced ticket sales and the sold out performances across the board. So he's a good person for you to know.
Roel is the row of genius, clearly. Let it be known. Why did this need to be a theatrical film? I mean, I think this movie would have gotten a lot of attention on streaming. I don't think this would have disappeared wherever it went.
No, but I guess that's the question that we all assess all the time. You know, is it on any project? Is it a streamer? Rustin was the perfect fit with Netflix, and we did really well with that. And other projects that I've made in the past, as you know, I've done docu-series for Apple and all kinds of shows. This one, first of all, the great thing about this movie, and I don't want to talk too much about it because I want it to be a surprise as much as it can be, because I know you know quite a bit about it already, probably. But it's something that everybody can relate to. It's a comedy. It's hilarious. I'm on the floor. I love it every time I see it. And listen, when I make a film that doesn't work, I say, all right, I tried, it failed. It didn't work. I've done a few of those. This one, it hits me in the heart every time, because it hits me emotionally, because it's about the complexities of relationships. And everybody is in one at one time in their life or another. And they can always identify with something or other in it. It may not specific to everybody, the characters on screen, but it hits you in the heart. And what I listened to last night, and I told this to Rashida and Will and Olivia, the silence. Anyway, I don't want to talk too much about it because you're going to experience it. And it's great. But in answer to your question, the communal experience of seeing a comedy that is hilarious and the audience is on the floor, laugh after laugh.
Yeah.
Then the film takes an interesting turn emotionally. So heart and humor are rare combinations in films. But when you look at some of the greatest movies ever made that are hysterically funny, but they also have substance, they're about something. It hits people in the heart. That's the beauty of this movie. But seeing it in a communal experience with an audience, and when you see it tonight, you'll have the experience that I had last night. I know that because I already know the ticket sales tonight. So I'm glad you have your ticket.
Roel, because you show this at a festival, thousands of people saw it there and wrote reviews and everything, and yet that twist that you talk about still remains out of the you've kept a lid on it. Despite thousands of viewings and everything else. How do you manage to do that?
Well, I don't. Number one, I don't manage to do anything. We manage to do that collectively because Olivia, who's the captain of the ship, she really had a very distinct, and we were all on the same page in terms of the theatrical release and in terms of when we really wanted to go out and present this film and how we wanted to present it. So a lot of it relates to materials. When you cut a trailer, what are you going to give up and what are you not going to give up? And what are those gems you want to hold back on? And those are decisions that are made with a number of people, obviously A24, and Annapurna and all the other parties, and obviously Olivia and the whole team. So that's important to us because to me, movie-going experience surprise me. Show me something I haven't seen. Take me on a journey and I don't know where I'm going.
Yeah.
With social media and obviously connections now, I mean, look, the beauty of technology, it connects us. Technology, medical technology, it's all great, obviously, for so many reasons. There's also the dark side of technology is another story for another time to discuss the dark side of technology, and we know what that can be. But in terms of holding back, you don't want to give it all away. So hopefully the audiences who experience this, as you will understand that there's so many layers to this story. And as good of a trailer as it is, as good as the materials are, as good as whatever's been put out there in the world, and on social media, people can write whatever they write. But I urge people to see the movie going in with knowing nothing, because that's the best way to see a movie. And that's when I go to Sundance and I discover the next great filmmaker. It's why I see every short as the next generation of people coming in. And when you think about the successes we've had with wind in our sails at the box office, finally, in a business which has been very challenging, you've written about it, and we've talked about it before many times over the last number of years. It's been challenging times since COVID, and our business is has been in deep, troubling times. But I think the wind is finally coming back in our sails for the again.
Do you feel that? Do you feel optimistic?
I think what's really great about it is when you talk about Markiplier and you think about him self-releasing the film and, Iron Lung, and you think about Obsession and Backroom, and I've seen all these movies, obviously. You know what? There's an audience out there that wants to see the movie. The hunger is there. And history repeats itself, Richard. You know that, and I know that. It's sometimes unfortunate but true in history. But in our business, you think about the great filmmakers that came up through the troubled times in the 70s and the 60s and the greatest films ever made. I mean, look, these guys are paving the way through YouTube, through their social media. There's built-in audiences. There's no surprises. I mean, yeah, nobody anticipated the grosses being what they are on these films. I think the industry is taken back because it's something that hasn't been seen before quite to the extent it hasn't. And it is a wind in the sail because to me, it's new voices. And that to me is the biggest challenge in our industry of those of us, and I have no talent as a writer, director, actor. I'm a producer. I love doing what I'm doing. When I tried to go to Cal Arts and I met Sandy McKendrick, the professor there, he got to know me when I 8mm films I was writing, directing, and he got to know me and he looked at my films. He said, "Son, did you ever think of being a producer instead of a writer director?" And if you saw my films, you'd probably make the same decision. But in any event, I think that the business has got wind in its sail. I'm very hopeful and optimistic. I can list a million things that I think are wrong with the business or things that maybe need to be changed in the business. There you can go on for hours about that. I think one of the big things for me personally, I love movies. And I hope the other people that I'm in business with, whether they're studio executives or development executive or, I think most of the people, the creative people that I'm in business with, we share that passion. I would like to believe that it's shared by people behind the scenes in our business or more on the business side of this industry. Consolidation concerns me like it does everybody. And I know you're an advocate, most definitely, of this is a dangerous time we're in for all the reasons we all know. To make a difference, Harry Warner, I started talking about Warner. Harry Warner used to say, the power, this was him, not Jack Warner, but Harry Warner, the oldest brother and the founder of the studio. He felt the power of this business should do three things. And he said the three E's: educate, enlighten, and entertain. And that truly, because movies will live beyond your lifetime and my lifetime, all of our lifetimes. So to make a movie that is impactful, that can make a difference, to me, when I think about some of the body of work that I've done, I mean, Face Off doesn't speak to that, but Hacksaw Ridge does, Rustin does, most definitely Being Human does, which is on the horizon with Sean Hayter, about activists in the disabled community. Every morning on my bike ride, if I have to hop up on a sidewalk because of construction going to Griffith Park this morning, early morning bike rides, I get up on a sidewalk without Judy Human. She's the activist. Every street corner that was built in America never had curb cuts before 1977, until this little girl in a wheelchair from Brooklyn, New York, with polio, Judy Human, the godmother of the disabled community, made a difference in the world because of her voice, one voice.
What a great story.
That sit-in became the documentary Crib Camp at Sundance. President Obama produced it. And the narrative film version of her story, based on her best-selling book, Sean Hayter was the captain of the ship, and she wrote and directed a movie which you'll be seeing soon.
Yeah.
From Apple. But that's an example of certainly educate, enlighten, and entertain. And at every street corner, every elevator with Braille on the elevators never existed before Judy Human.
Wow. That's fantastic. Well, we have come to the end of our. I've kept you beyond the promised time here, but we have to have a whole another conversation just about LA real estate. I would love to do an hour just to
tour of the Stars homes, Richard.
That I could.
Back to my room. Somebody gave me a sign which is hanging in the house somewhere. It says "Maps to the Agents' Homes."
Even better. I would love to hear all that. Our guest has been David Permut. The film that opens today is The Invite. It's fantastic. Go see it. Opening just at a few theaters today, I think, and then goes
more limited rollout, and then it opens. In a couple of weeks, it opens across the country.
Yeah, go see it as soon as you can, wherever you can. Thank you, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate the time.
Take care. Bye-bye.